This is Dinan Kamathi for this week's edition of Freedom Now. We'll hold off on the African German historical calendar and, if time permits, back end that segment. We'll commence with an update on this, the third-year invasion of Syria by foreign-backed jihadist terrorists under the banner of the Arab uprising. Johnny Achi will address the recent Israeli bombing of Syria and the Russian peace initiative bringing together internal opposition forces for political solutions. Greetings, Johnny Achi, who represents Arab Americans for Syria, a national organization of Syrian Americans and supporters. Arab Americans for Syria are educating and lobbying for a just, democratic, and egalitarian Syria under the present constitution and government, a democratically elected government, to end the United States and Israel's effort to overthrow and place a Western imperialist puppet government. Mr. Achi has been a regular contributor to Freedom Now for 3 years, which provides the only alternative point of view at Pacifica regarding the crisis in Syria. Johnny, can you give us an update on the recent Israeli bombing of Syria as well as the new Russian initiative in fomenting a political solution to the crisis?
Absolutely, Don. First, it's good to be back. It's been about maybe a few weeks we haven't been on the air. But I think on three different fronts, let's talk about the military front, and then we can talk a little bit about the peace talks. Militarily, of course, the United States is still trying to act like it's waging war against ISIS. What we believe as Syrian citizens, if the United States wanted to end this war or end growing of ISIS, could easily stop the flooding of jihadists into Syria from the Turkish border. We've been saying this for the last 3 years on your show. Stop the flux of arms and stop the flooding of jihadists, and this is how you end it. You can't just keep coming out every few hours with an airstrike, which might kill a few or might, most parts is killing civilians as well. We know there's tens of thousands of jihadists in Syria, and the only way to defeat those jihadists is to work with the Syrian army, who is truly doing an incredible job in the eastern part of Syria, and Deir ez-Zor and Raqqa, who's fighting on the ground against the jihadists and is winning the battle. The airstrikes, in our opinion, it's not amounting to much more than the public propaganda that the United States and these regional countries who have supported terrorism in Syria for the last 3 years, it's just the public propaganda that they are waging war on terrorism. But we all know, that they have been supporting, including, if I might say, Israel. We haven't talked much about the role of Israel, but of course on December 7th, just a couple of Sundays ago, there was another Israeli warplane bombing 2 areas near Damascus. As you know, Didan, since the Syrian conflict began in March 2011, I think Israel has carried at least 4 airstrikes in Syria. They've always targeted sophisticated weapon systems. Every time it does it, it's when the Syrian army is gaining control over the terrorist groups near Damascus. We've been on your show, we've talked about every single time. And this is, again, as Damascus is getting safer, Damascus is getting a lot more normal now. By pushing these terrorist groups further away from Damascus, here comes another attack by Israel on December 7th. We might say, why is Israel having anything to do with this? Because they don't want ISIS to lose the war. And a lot of your listeners might be surprised to hear this. But I would just like to remind the listeners of something that Benjamin Netanyahu said not too long ago. It was, I think, last September when he addressed the UN General Assembly. He said to defeat ISIS, which in his opinion is fighting Iran and Syria and Hezbollah, to him, to defeat ISIS and leave Iran as threshold nuclear power, what he said, is to win the battle and lose the war. Okay, that's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's own words. And today in Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, there was a quote by senior Northern Command officer. He's saying about that lead coalition, to him, is not making sense because it's a big mistake to be fighting ISIS, who in his mind, again, are fighting. He's saying like it's like the United States, Canada, and France are on the same side as Hezbollah, Iran, and Syria, and that did not make any sense to him. So again, a lot of countries in the region, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, might appear to be fighting terrorism, but we know they have supported for years the war in Syria. They've supported these radical groups, surrogate troops on the ground to fight and weaken the Syrian army. So this is on the political battle on the ground. Again, Syria is still winning the war. They're pushing these people out, and I think Aleppo, which is the second largest in Syria, is getting now choked by the Syrian army. They're surrounded from all areas, and we believe in the next few months it's going to lead to just pushing these all the way out to the eastern part near, Iraq, where eventually it's going to be the last battle. On the political front, there's very important news coming out, which is the Russia today is finally trying to broker a peace accord between the opposition and the Syrian government. We've known that the West and the United States have tried that for the last 3 years with Geneva 1 and Geneva 2, and they have failed drastically because there's always of the preconditions. Today, Russia is inviting both the opposition, not just the foreign-backed opposition like the West has, and they have, as you remember, vetoed internal-based opposition, which we believe is a true opposition to the Syrian government. I think it's going to be held late January. There will be 2 stages. The first stage, they will be bringing together the representatives of the opposition. So Russia is trying to broker first an agreement between the opposition. As you know, there's a lot of different positions. A lot of opposition belongs to different countries with different agendas. But I think they're going to bring the home-based opposition that we believe that this is the real opposition that needs to be sitting with the Syrian government to broker the peace accord. And they're going to bring the foreign opposition or the opposition that is sitting outside. And then the second stage would be to meet with the representative of the Syrian government. As you know, Russia has been a big supporter of the Syrian government and its war against jihadists and against foreign fighters in Syria. And they want to broker it without any precondition, and I think that's the only way it's gonna go down.
Johnny, what is the characteristic, the political platform of the opposition inside Syria?
We have a lot of secular opposition, Bidan, nationalist position who are not part of the Ba'ath movement, and these are the people that we support because we believe that we need a multi-party system in Syria. We do have that now. We have over 12 political parties. And these opposition, who the West have put a veto on it, because in their opinion, it's not going to change. It will not lead to regime change. For the U.S. regime change, we need taking this pro-East or pro-Russia or pro-Iran government and replace it with a puppet who is a pro-U.S. This is what it means to the United States and to the Western countries. They don't care that these are secular people who have chosen to be a sovereign nation. They have no idea what it means to be in opposition. They want someone that they have, like the Karzai in Afghanistan. They tried to do in Egypt with the Morsi, Mohammed Morsi, or they tried to do in Libya. And we've seen that political Islam, what the United States have bet on, have failed. So it's time for the United States to say, okay, we've gambled, we've failed, and it's time to now rescue these countries before they go to total collapse. We've seen what happened in Libya, and it's a shame that after 3 years of what the United States have brought supposedly democracy to this region, this beautiful country is torn apart, and we have nothing but Al-Qaeda groups fighting now. Luckily, Egypt was saved by its own people, the second revolution, and brought again more secular people into the power. And Syria is going to remain secular. The opposition in Syria, we have plenty of them who are not Islamists, who are far away from any religious political base or ideology. These people, we believe, will, with the Syrian government, who is secular right now, can form a great coalition to have put together maybe a new government with full executive powers. Remove the power from the Ba'ath Party for the time being and put a transitional government. I think that will bring peace to the region, and let true democracy take place in Syria and see who the people want to put in power in the future.
We are speaking with Johnny Achi from Arab Americans for Syria. Johnny, the fundamental question for the opposition is whose interests do they serve? Are they Syrian nationalists, independent of Euro-capitalist and Israeli control, and committed to the best interests of Syrian women, youth, workers, the Syrian people?
Syria, for the last 50, 60 years, since it gained its independence from France, have chosen, since obviously the West took the side of Israel, Syria, had to go turn around, and they turned eastward. The Syrian people were not pushed into changing loyalty or changing sides overnight. If the Syrian people would want to change their future, direction toward who they want to be allied with, that's going to take years. You cannot come in and do a regime change and force people to turn. So all the opposition we consider to be internal opposition, their loyalty is to Syria. Their loyalty is to stay a sovereign nation. Their loyalty is to maintain Syria a socialist place where women and men are equal, where, all people are equal. And on that note, if you don't mind me mentioning, there's a small headline that I read that bothered me just a few minutes ago. It's worthy of mentioning that two Saudi women who were detained in early December for defying a ban on female drivers, they will be tried now in a terrorism court, Didan.
Saudi Arabia, the United States' #1 Arab partner, ally in the Middle East?
Yes, sir. Yes. Two women who were detained, I remember the first week of December, crossing over from United Arab Emirates. They defied and they wanted to come in, and they drove their car into Saudi Arabia. They were arrested. And today the news is talking that these two women will not be tried for driving or breaking rules as a woman driver, but they will be tried in a terrorism court. So I ask the American government, instead of supporting Islamist and radical groups to fight secular government like the case is in Syria, why don't you support pro-democracy groups like these two brave women who are only defying a ban on driving? Okay, women in Saudi Arabia are still treated as second-class citizens, and it's a shame for us as a country to be supporting terrorist groups in places like Syria and Iraq to overthrow a secular government, and not stand behind two brave women who decided that they were, time for a change, and it's time for women to drive in Saudi Arabia.
Well, Brother Johnny, we have to move on to Cuba and to Black Lives Matter, an uprising in the United States by African youth. But we thank you very, very much. Johnny Achi from Arab Americans for Syria.
My pleasure, Dina. Thank you.
حي القوات المسلحة منابع الشرف الجيش العربي السوري باسمكم وحي القوات المسلحة رمز الفخر والعزة الجيش العربي السوري